Green Room, where we go live before the live,
Go live before the live.
and it's all a dry run. It's all a warm up.
It's just a warm up. We
There's
might
no
have been chatting. We might have been
there's no
chatting
pressure.
before we chatted.
Yeah, we may be hashing out logistics and or bashing on students.
I don't have any students.
Trash talking students. Yeah, I know. So therefore,
Kurt might have been lighting it up.
Making it interesting. Yeah, I do know more and more of them are listening, so I will be patient and passive.
So there was a moment,
so direct.
kids. I'm just kidding. There was a moment where Kurt was almost quoting from Pulp Fiction a moment ago.
Jamie, unfortunately, they don't. That was before they were bored.
Well, but they all do know who Samuel L. Jackson is.
They might.
They should.
I'm not going to put a lot of hope into that statement.
Well, okay. Well, I mean,
I cite a lot of movies. I am some pleasantly surprised sometimes.
Yeah.
And but it's a sort of a mixed bag of what actually is the.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I had the same thing.
What latches on?
I had the same thing this week. I will admit, like, I went on in the last week. It was on Friday. I went on a riff about Singles. Like, such a classic.
Yeah, but that was
it's a total Gen X film.
House Gen X.
Yeah.
Fringe movie of even in its time.
Yeah, I know it was.
I watched it.
I mean, such a killer soundtrack, though. I mean, how can you?
That's the only reason I watched that.
Well,
movie.
I mean, the movie was good too. I mean,
Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
Trying to be an actor and all that. Well, was it Chris Cornell in that too?
Oh yeah, Chris Cornell. You had Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. I mean, all of them were hanging around.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that's the kind of movie that I will search on Netflix or whatever, and they're going to want to charge me more money to watch it. Or it's unavailable. Right? Like, I've done this every time we record. I went back and looked for something last week or the week before, and they.
Were you trying to find Judgment Night?
$9.99. Which was Judgment Night?
Yeah.
What's that?
Judgment Night, the movie.
No, not that. I know we talked about that, but it wasn't that. It was something else. And they were like, $9.99, please. And I was like, come on. It wasn't that. It wasn't Judgment Night. It was. It was something a little more, not a little less obscure.
I'm just glad I'm making you laugh. That's like welcome.
Yeah,
Trying.
These wrinkles don't grow themselves.
I know. Do each of them have a student's name?
Not all of them. Some of them are just students. Like, let's just say school is this side.
Okay.
And clients are this side. I'm going to retell this story tomorrow morning in class. And then, although every hair follicle that releases is a student. And they're all probably listening and basically cringing, as the term is with the students these days. This is very cringy. Yeah. I'll stay cringe. I don't care today.
It's all right. It's okay. There's a lot of terms that, like, there's some I know, there's some that I know there is a term. I don't even want to know what it means because it doesn't effing make any sense to me. So, yeah. And some of the ones that we grew up with didn't make any effing sense to me either. So it doesn't matter. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
See, I didn't even go over the swear limit right there. I leaned in.
Save those.
I got close.
We saved them.
Yep, saved it.
I used quite a few on Monday night though at studio.
PG-13.
There's a lot of F-bombs that came out Monday.
Oh wow.
I mean, but not in a negative. It was actually more of a probably something that I forgot to upload. A lot of it has to do, probably some of the students that may be watching right now are probably like, he should, Professor Kurt might better spend his time fixing that tutorial in the acoustics simulation tool. Because that's the headache that I'm getting right now. Is the tutorial is not syncing in to the degree that it was intended, and so I'm getting a lot of fraught emails about this tool, digital software tool. So
all I'll say is it does generally take a lot to make Kurt that pissed.
I'm not pissed though. I'm not pissed. They know. I had one student tell me that I couldn't be bad cop in the mid review because I just couldn't. I was incapable of being a bad cop.
Oh, I don't think they know you. I think there is a bad cop in Kurt.
Yeah, bad cop drops hammer.
Yeah, but it's like he does it with like a giggle. Like that's the whole thing. Is the bad cop with Kurt? It's got a little bit of a giggle to it. So
yeah, like you ate my ice cream. That's
but he's gonna cut you. He's gonna cut you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Yep. Gonna cut you.
Bad cop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also Time Cop.
No, that was a bad movie.
Yeah, but Time Cop is the one that has to keep time at the reviews, though.
Oh.
It was also a terrible movie, but the kids don't even know that Time Cop was a movie.
No, I know. Do you know that RoboCop has a PhD in art history?
Peter Weller?
Yeah.
I could see that.
So I somehow stumbled on this.
He's artiste.
And like, I have to admit, there has been a moment or two where I just want to listen to RoboCop talk about like the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Aren't
doesn't.
there old YouTube videos with Peter Weller doing that?
No, he's doing it on Instagram now.
Oh,
so he's just like yeah. I know. Know. I'm sorry. It's triggering for Kurt right now.
I'm having a bad media day. I just don't want anybody's eyeballs. No eyeballs.
Sorry.
If I push them all away, I feel like more will pop up, and then we will become a viral sensation. Because that's the goal, right? Is virality. Isn't that the goal?
Relevance. Fun.
Flash in the pan.
No.
Oh, not opposite of flash.
Opposite of flash in the pan is relevance and fun.
Old fuddy-duddy is what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
Just go watch Time Cop again. So
I want to watch RoboCop because RoboCop is set in dystopian Detroit.
Yes.
That was one I wanted to watch the other night. That was the one they wanted fucking $9 to watch. There goes. I used my one voice, my one foul mouth strike. RoboCop, of all movies. Whoa, RoboCop 2. Technically, I was trying to watch Kane. Whatever. Adam Savage. I was watching an Adam Savage YouTube. Do we call YouTube social media? Because that's like the only thing that I really cared to find. It's not really social media because I use it for education. Because even though I teach people, I still like to learn things from other people.
RoboCop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, when it's Adam Savage, you're not just learning about RoboCop. You're learning about how to make the props. That's design. That's part of our big tent.
There's a lot of rabbit holes that you've gone down lately. I think that maybe.
Well, it was my birthday, so I feel like I'm entitled to do a little bit of that on my birthday.
Yeah.
Aren't we all allowed to do something we want?
Absolutely.
Something for ourselves, purely for ourselves.
Purely for yourself. Yes.
Well,
find the joy.
It's a circle. It's a RoboCop is the. Like now, I find myself living in Michigan for 16 or 17 years. Home of RoboCop.
Yet,
there is a statue of him down by the building.
Yeah, well, but then they use the Dallas City Hall for backdrop.
Well, you got to ruin it for me, Jamie.
I'm sorry.
Is that the I am pay?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, well, architecture.
Architecture.
It's all architecture.
Yeah. 24/7.
We were just talking about Boston, which our friends that are other architecture podcast creators.
Save it for the episode.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll
right.
save it.
It's time.
Maybe that encourage people to join us for the episode.
Yep. Green room out.
Okay. Oh, hey, Jamie.
Welcome to the show.
Fancy meeting you here.
Yeah, I know.
Round the corner, there you are. I mean, there's no corners on the internet.
No.
But
there might. Well, no.
Some dark corners.
I was.
Dark web.
No. You stop doing the true crime stuff.
Come on, man.
You pulled yourself away from all that. Now we just have the occasional YouTube rabbit hole for prop design. Maybe related to
if people were listening to the pre-show on the only live stream architecture podcast on Twitch and YouTube. So there is all kinds of. You never know what you're going to get before this part. This is us reining it in.
Yes.
Outside of this, no holds barred.
All bets are off.
For those that understand that reference, that's also very generational.
Yeah.
I mean, the term, not so much. The movie, very much.
There might have been some F-bombs.
There was one.
Even one. There was one.
I think we're allowed one.
Yeah, I think you're allowed one per episode.
I've not gotten any nasty emails. So that's either because YouTube doesn't find us significant enough, or you're allowed one.
I think one, and you're still PG-13. I think they changed the rules. So
I think it depends on maybe how many subscribers you have.
Yeah, well, that too, probably.
If you have negative subscribers, it's irrelevant.
No, we're not doing. We're not doing.
We're not negative. We actually have positive.
It's
in the positive.
Let's be honest.
Tens of subscribers.
Let's be honest. Like it's
okay. I digress.
We're doing well. So,
no, I mean, I'm not complaining. Look at this plush lifestyle I live.
Well, you keep moving houses.
I'm moving.
I mean,
I keep moving rooms, moving houses. Rabbit holes. But you gotta no stone unturned, Jamie.
No, I think that time, that time in LA where, what was it? Michael
Maltin.
No.
Oh, Leonard Maltin.
Leonard Maltin.
That was a nice mashup of names.
Whew, boy. Yeah.
The Professor Leonard, yes.
Yeah, don't ask Jamie to get the names right. Like, unless, well, actually, never. Don't ask me to get the names right because I'm probably not gonna. I'm gonna get close because the brain, like a steel trap. Um, but yeah, so Leonard Maltin did have an influence on Kurt in his USC days, and maybe connected that architecture and film just a little bit more. And then you got to meet one of the masters of, like,
Creature creation. Is that what
yeah,
we're talking? Is that where we're
yeah,
going with this?
yeah. We're
Well,
going down that
Stan.
road for a second. Yeah,
You need the name Stan Winston.
yeah.
I got a
Well,
I got a name drop.
no. So I'm letting you do the name drop. So you did that, and then we have talked about Sid Mead. The sort of the artistic influence on um, many an artist architect. And then Kurt drops on me tonight that he's gone down for his birthday. Happy birthday, buddy! That he went and sort of went down his own little rabbit hole related to RoboCop and prop design. So, did you find what you were looking for?
Oh, I just scratched the surface.
Okay.
If- but being based here in Michigan, although RoboCop is set in Detroit, a future dystopian, capitalistic Detroit, which may not sound too strange these days.
Right.
Um, yeah, RoboCop was designed. Well, there's a couple of people attributed to it. Phil Tippett, some of the characters, and oh god, I'm gonna forget his name. And now I shouldn't name. That's why you don't name drop because you forget names. And if Adam Savage, the MythBuster, is watching, shame, shame upon me. However, uh, the I don't know. I mean, don't you? I mean, well, having worked for Stan, who designed Jurassic Park, dinosaurs, Terminator, Predator, Alien, all those beloved characters before CGI was a thing. They were all animatronic and sculpted artworks. Um, RoboCop falls into that. There's actually, so the one thing I'll talk about is that there is uh, not just a little bit, but a fair amount of stop motion animation in RoboCops when dealing with, you know, so the actor, Peter Weller as RoboCop has a costume, but they're
Doctor. Doc. It's Doctor Peter
Dr.
Weller.
Weller,
Yeah.
fantastic, professor.
Yeah. Probably that too.
So, Dr. Weller playing RoboCop, Alex Murphy, um, is a human in a costume, but some of the uh, you know other robot bad guys are puppets, and so they're scaled down versions. I mean, there's some full scale parts, and then there's a lot of stop motion animation. So for an action movie, and again without CGI as a fallback, the stop motion. Probably people would probably think it's really hokey today to see because there's some jitter, stop motion, but uh, to have pulled off what they pulled off. I mean, that's the thing is that that's why I went down this rabbit hole of all the stories Jamie is extracting from me is Adam Savage, the MythBuster, and now he has a YouTube channel about all of his. It's basically his sort of version of brain, sharing with the world everything that he's been experienced in his career. Um, the claim so his claim is that the Kane in RoboCop 2, the bad guy was Kane. The Kane robot, again designed through Phil Tippett Studios, was and still remains one of the most complicated, physically uh, sculpted movie characters ever. Right? I mean, there's so many moving parts, right? And none of it was CGI. It was all modeled. It was all built, right? So I guess for us architects, the whole point, this long diatribe, about 15 hours of me talking, is the whole point is the making of objects, handmade, human scale elements.
To create a suspension of disbelief.
Exactly. The total suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, so you got to have that craft and that creativity and
the care the,
imagination
the care for the detail
and the care for the
to
details.
to
Exactly.
to emulate or uh, generate this world for people to sort of move into. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Well, I
Can
mean,
can we stop the podcast now? Because I think I
I mean,
can't go any farther.
well, I mean, it's funny because as you were sort of saying that, and it's, uh, I think it's interesting. Like we use the term world building a lot now, and that's a relatively new term, right? I mean, in sort of the
Right, like
lexicon of
game
vocabulary, it's
design and stuff.
yeah. I think, and I think it really does kind of come out of that. I think you're absolutely right. And so, as you're describing this, um, you know, makeup, model building, set design, character animation, stop motion animation, special effects, creature effects. It's this opportunity for craft and design and care all coming into play to create that suspension of disbelief so that you can create that world. And I think that that's something that's um, as a creative, I think both of us sort of feel that kinship to that kind of medium. And you've had a lot more experience sort of meeting and sort of interacting with that from your time in Los Angeles. But I think that both of us have this you know distinct appreciation for it because of, I think, the training that we've gone through as designers and architects and the time at which we did that, where we were looking for those expressions in other mediums, a lot of it being film, to really kind of understand that higher level of creativity, because either architecture hadn't quite caught up to it yet in terms of actual building, or just because of the generation that we were kind of in terms of um, the innovation that was happening in film. That both of those things kind of coalescing for us, I think, brings those two touch points together. In a lot of the ways that we're viewing the world, viewing architecture, viewing popular culture, trying to have those through lines. This influences this, and so forth. Um, so yeah, to hear that
Mhm.
you went on that sort of diatribe for yourself, for your birthday, totally get it. Not
So
surprised.
so Craig Hayes, I had to look it up because you got to give credit to. But the one aspect of Craig Hayes, so he is attributed to ED209 and then working on the Kane character too in the sequel. But when he was working ED209, he was 21 years old when he invented that character, right? And they were like, well, he needs to be a part of the project because, we can't just steal his design. So the cool part is, for students that are listening, there's always an opportunity to contribute if your creativity uh, can find a little bit, just a little glimpse of light. Because the way it worked is that like the story goes. This is the fun part. This is the anecdotal. This is not they don't teach you this in books. Craig Hayes met Phil Tippett at at a Hollywood house party, and then they created the opportunity to make the characters for Robot or RoboCop, which
Was there?
is
It was a Hollywood house party, like so, like in the
like an act
'80s.
some actors'
So
house
there was
party.
probably like cocaine.
Nobody said anything about that,
Oh, okay,
but
okay, different story.
but you're probably right. Oh God.
So speaking
Anyway,
of,
so there's that.
so from a movie like, because you watch a whole lot of like we've talked about your consumption of media, and not that it's unhealthy, but I am amazed at sometimes how much you do consume. I
Oh,
think that I do watch a lot of stuff. I do watch a lot of sports too. So there's a like where it's a balancing of like so question. There was a movie last was it last year? Cocaine Bear, like
oh
based on a true story. Did you see that film? Okay.
no, no, no.
Do we need to
I
do
was
like a
kind of off put by the name and the premise.
do we need to do like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 like
Did you
watching of
watch it?
some of No, I didn't. No.
MS3 3K style, of course. Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
How does one pull it off these days without getting, copyright strikes or
I don't know. No. No.
having, massive budgets for this?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea was interesting. I've heard that it was actually good from some people, but then yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean not I mean yeah, it just
I think that's a little bit older though, because that's a kind of a pandemic movie, isn't it?
wasn't it? Maybe. I don't know. Just like
It's like
stupid.
one of
It
those
sounded
that
it's like
like,
it was
there's
dumb.
nothing else to watch
Yeah. Well,
because there was the actors strike and the pandemic, right? And then
that happens too. Yeah. People lose touch. So, all right. Um so back to the script. So what's the coffee of the day there, buddy?
as you can see on this whiteboard over here, there's the script.
Mhm.
Right?
Right. Right. Yep.
Note to everyone who's listening, Kurt's pointing at a blank whiteboard.
Well, yeah, because his yarn filled wall of
It's
how the
over
conspiracy works
it's
is
over
just
this way.
off camera to the other side.
And oh, someone scanned the QR code. Well, we might have sold some merch. Please, thank you. I think that's the reason they would scan. Okay, people can't see my screen, but I get to see the goings on. Oh, there's somebody in the chat too. Oh, hey, it's brother Joe. Hey Joe, as you
We
know,
just lost Kurt, folks. We just
as
lost Kurt. Like
as
too many things going on.
uh
So
yeah, okay. So coffee. I'm back on track. So um lately, so let's see what our friends down at the coffee shop in the farmers market have some new stuff to share, and so there's a company called Black Diesel, and they're a Detroit-based company. Diesel, I think you got to pronounce it Diesel, right? Um, they're Detroit-based, and so their coffees are all kind of named after automotive history,
oh, I thought
right?
you were gonna say after RoboCop.
Uh, Automotive and let's say industrial revolution history, because
Mm,
one of the flavors is called Edison,
okay.
and so that is not an automotive thing. That's a light bulb thing.
Right.
Um, and so that's what I've got is Edison flavored. Well, named. It's not flavored coffee. Let's not go down that road. But yeah, that's what we got, and it is quite good. And I'm gonna probably try out all the flavors or roasts varieties that Black Diesel has, because down at the farmers market, they all are there. So
It's good.
when
Good.
when
New
in
friends.
Flint,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
try them all. When in the market. So what about you?
I've got a little city
Little
going
city.
on. Um, it's one of their coffee roasters from Colombia, and the tasting notes are guava, strawberry, and chocolate. And this is one that I have enjoyed earlier and have had some still left, and it's quite good. It's the El Vergel, and I've
Sounds good. Those
it's a
flavors sound good. Guava,
yeah.
chocolate.
It has just it's a very even, um, and I don't mean that like in a bad way. I mean that like it's just it's very clean kind of taste, and then has a little bit of that strawberry and chocolate fruitiness to it. Um,
Kind of reminds me of now I can't remember the one I used to like at Rootless, but yeah, the berry kiss.
yes,
This is a subtle
probably,
like
which I didn't have that one,
you
but
never got
yes,
that?
never got that one.
I
No,
thought I was able to ship one.
no, it's
Well,
okay.
still exists. You
Yeah,
can still make that happen. Oh, there it goes. So yeah, I like that. I would totally be down with that flavor. Maybe I should have some of that. Little City. Let's turn the tables
yeah,
back
Austin
to Jamie.
original. So yes, it's quite good.
So, um, sorry, I jumped right into some sketches. Uh, although the listeners don't notice, but they do now. Um, but we will have to circling back, Jamie. We will have to fulfill those promises
Of some care packages.
on coffee
Yes, coffee care
coffee care.
packages. Yes.
Um, and I will have to obtain some Berry Kiss. You did get Light Bright though, right?
No,
You got what?
no,
Yes, you did.
no.
I think you're just lying now.
I did not have light bright. You
Was
almost
it called Light Bright? It wasn't called Light Bright, but it looked
there.
like Bright.
It was called light bright, wasn't it?
Well, you would know because you have a bag that I probably sent you.
No, no, no. I mean, I thought you were going to say you would probably know because you had a light bright as a kid. And yes, I did have a light bright as a kid. So,
My little niece got a Light Bright for Christmas, and it's LED powered these days.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
The OG with the
Oh, gee.
bulb and how hot it got.
Hot. Like burn your fingertips.
It was
Yeah,
dangerous. Hers is like a little pancake. It's so thin.
right.
It's
And
almost
like perfectly clean light. And the other one
yeah.
was
It's a
like,
uniform
yeah, you could like
white light.
fry
Color
an egg on
temperature
it,
four
you know?
4,000 Kelvin.
Yeah,
Unlike the old G, the OG.
yeah.
Anyway, this is the point of the podcast that the students probably drop off, but
They're like,
that's
oh
okay.
boy, there they go again.
Or they zoom past
They're like,
2x speed.
pss, 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 pss. Yep.
Um, yeah,
That's my sound effect for that.
I would
There's a
love
button.
them for
There's a
them to
button.
just approach me at school and ask me, just ask, you know, if you don't know about light bright bulb burns, just ask.
Just ask.
We all have scars,
Kurt's
right?
Kurt's got the scars. Yep.
So Jamie, all right, okay, we could we we've we've danced around the serious business
It's
enough,
time to talk sketches, folks.
and yeah. Otherwise, we don't want to talk about travel plans and
No.
scheduling
Well,
headaches and this and
I'll
that.
just say
Well, we do want to talk about that.
we
Though.
do want to just kind of put that little nugget in here as we transition to the architecture and the sketching. Is that we will be in Boston in June. We will be joining many of our podcast colleagues and friends. And, you know, I think it's time for us all to get together on the mic and maybe do kind of a walkabout. Kurt has this idea of a walkabout with the Coffee Sketch Boys. And Kurt
Oh,
has
you mean Archie speak?
no
Oh, you mean us?
us.
Come join us. Okay,
Come join us.
but hopefully the Archie speak
I don't even know. Are they even stateside? I mean,
gents. They're planning on being there. I believe they're there. At
okay.
least at least one half of.
All right.
So let's say, is it the Archie or the speak?
I don't know which one. Do they even know?
Well, hopefully the speak side, so that it doesn't, But anyway,
Yeah.
yes, well, I don't want to take all the credit. I do think I think part of this brainstorm is due to Cormac and the idea of a walkabout. We like a walkabout, and so Jamie likes a walkabout. Cormac thought up we could do a walkie-talkie event in Boston. Is that
And
how'd I sell that one? Sell
kind
it?
of. I don't know. We can workshop it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's yeah, we're gonna do a walkie-talkie event. We've tried this with us many years ago. When the tech wasn't kind of at the level that we're playing at now, folks. So,
I have an idea.
oh gosh,
This yeah. So okay, because I won't give away what we already did some brainstorming on.
yeah.
But let's do so part of the walkie and talkie, right? We're gonna
Hmm.
walk and talk, and then when we get to the final destination,
A place.
it's gonna be napkin sketchy
Ooh,
time to conclude said event.
okay. Everyone loves a good napkin sketch,
So
and
everybody can do a napkin sketch.
yeah, everyone should be able to do one. I mean, come on,
Well, I
even
mean,
if they don't want to get. I mean, the point being, we've invited lots of podcasters to join us. So, and admittedly, a lot of people might not want to just all hop on the mic, and that's okay. But to
like
include every
in a sort of impromptu live
in
fashion,
an
right? So,
exactly. So but an impromptu sketching, is super fun. We love those kinds of events ourselves. When we do kind of urban sketch tours or just a Tuesday night. Um, so yeah, I mean we're gonna I think we throw in a sketch and at the end of it and then have a tasty beverage with our friends.
I think that's it. Planned, done,
Done,
done, planned.
done,
Yeah.
good.
So we figured
Okay,
it out.
yeah.
Only took 5 minutes.
We
That's all.
might have argued about this before this
Yeah,
episode, folks.
yeah, we worked it out uh, on air. It's a lot more uh what's the word? Diplomatic this way.
Yes, yeah, because we know we're being recorded.
Yes, we're live.
We're live.
And so yeah, so that's our pitch, friends. That's the long-winded pitch of yeah, come join us in Boston. Let's walk, talk, sketch, sip on a beer, and enjoy summertime in the Northeast. And so, segueing from that to,
Speaking of
but
sketches,
yeah, speaking of, it was. I'm glad you reminded me though, because we didn't want to leave that out because we're getting close. But these sketches, anyway. So now move on to the sketches, Kurt. These sketches are, if you're watching, very similar looking, and I purposely curated the pairing to Jamie's chagrin, because I want to see what's going on with a repeat sketch. Also, relatively, I think there's a relatively short time frame between them, which is a little bit rare. Um, so on the left and on the right, we have a sort of cross-sectional sketch, cutaway sketch of a sort of downtown Main Street condition, kind of bustling lifestyle, developing aspects of what he does on a daily basis as in his role as a Main Street architect, right? Sort of paint the picture, uh, you know, exemplify, what a downtown condition can be like, either historically and or moving back into the future, or not back into the future, but carrying those traditions farther to the next generation. But so the kind of fun part that I'm going to pick up on is obviously the similar nature of two sketches. Um, the presence of two different books. So an oldie but a goodie, The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs, and then a new one from a friend of the podcast, Carl Elefante, former president of AI National, big sustainability champion. His new book, Going for Zero, which is, I mean, it's got to be like hot off the presses, as they say, right?
Yeah, it dropped this month. So
So,
like,
so
yeah.
how does Jane Jacobs and Carl share the same screen, at least for our podcast, with a Jamie sketch? The same
Well,
Jamie sketch done twice.
yeah, done twice at that. Exactly. No, so I think for it's a I mean I always appreciate this sort of banter that we have where you do try and pick up on the clues that are left in the coffee sketches, and in the postings. um, some people do pick up on them, and I think that you're very astute to pick up on it this time, both by the sketch being sort of duplicated or iterated on, but also that I have talked about this sort of theme ish, starting this year, where I'm calling it my architect's library kind of theme, where I'm kind of pulling books off the shelf, and finding inspiration from them, or recalling inspiration from them. So I think that what's interesting is, I just had seen Carl. He had spoken, in College Station at a preservation symposium, focused on kind of the future, the future condition of rehabilitation and sort of adaptive reuse, and very inspiring speech. And in the lead up to that, I learned that he had a new book coming out, so quickly ordered it. Got to talk to him about that. And so, for those who don't know who Carl is, Kurt gave the introduction, but I think some people might maybe won't recognize the name, but they'll recognize the quote. And the quote is that's attributed to him is that the greenest building is the one that's already there. And there's kind of that phraseology at the end sort of sometimes changes, the one that's already built, whatever, but you get the idea. And now Carl is principal emeritus of Quinn Evans, another AI firm of the year. But and he's taught extensively, but this is the book that sort of has come after all of that. And I think it's in a lot of ways sort of an aggressive stance of like, there is no waiting anymore. We are in this sort of existential moment where we have to think about, carbon neutrality, and going for zero, in in a very aggressive way as a profession, as architects, as designers, um, because the climate has changed already drastically. It's going to continue to change, and the built environment is contributing to that in ways that we recognize, but we have to also recognize sort of both our part in it, but also sort of our response to it. And equally so, Kurt and I've talked about this before too, is this idea that as a profession, we can't build our way out of this, with all new construction. That's just not that's not feasible. And from a housing perspective, the population growth, development growth, development pressures, globally, there's so many things at play, and what in the work that I do and sort of the perspective that I have and others Kurt has is that we have to look at our existing buildings and start to think about how where we need to think more critically about them and critically as they're part of the solution, because they're already built. They are the greenest building. They do need to be adapted. They do need to be energy efficient. They do need to perform at a much higher level, so that we can achieve a zero and sort of achieve that neutrality. But it begins with the fact that the building's already there. We can't send it to the landfill and build something in its place. That's not that's not feasible. So I think that sort of aggressive stance is one that's taken in this book, and in a very kind of action item oriented kind of approach. Um, I've enjoyed it. Highly recommend it. Um, and in reading it, it made me think of the work that I'm doing, the work that I'm passionate about, and a lot of it is helping people illustrate the idea of these possibilities for these buildings, whether it's a small scale downtown building, historic, and landmarked, or just old and existing. And so, as Kurt described it with the sketch, is it's a slice through this building to illustrate the activity that's possible when you start to really think about these buildings in section,
Hmm.
and that they can have multiple uses even if they were originally designed for one use, and that use can change, and that's okay. That's the design challenge. That's when we get up in the morning and we get excited about the work that we're doing.
Yes, I agree with that. And sometimes trying to explain that to students sometimes it's it doesn't always sink in quite as quickly, but I think over time, it it will and it does, and the sort of understanding, can grow. Which is why I like the section sketch, right? Is sort of cut away, peel away, and you can sort of envision, this sort of diversity of occupancy and function on the inside of the building. Um, and then being like sort of a slice of like a fully built out existing main street. And here in Flint, um, there's a strange condition of how to go about this with existing buildings. We are not lacking for a lot of existing fabric in the city of Flint. However, by abandonment and blight, the values of property are quite depressed. And in a lot of cases, some of them can be purchased for very low prices. And I've probably talked about this, a few times in the past. However, the cost to upgrade and renovate to, more modern standards is sort of outweighs the original or originating cost of the building, by a lot, by a magnitude of say 10 or 20, times what a client particular, might be expecting. But at the end of the day, though, if we did more restoration of these existing buildings adjacent, next to each other, either if they're sharing a wall or if they're just along the same street, you're still going to save energy and money over the lifespan, right? Because you will get to repurpose what you're getting at, repurpose a good portion of the shell or the structure of the building, maybe even some of the thermal conditions, mass material like brick or masonry. I mean, if you were to replace these things with modern construction methods, you won't get anywhere near the level of mass, physical mass that you could or that was built originally.
Well, and it's all new material. I mean, and the old material has to go somewhere. The old material has to go
Yeah,
to the landfill,
yeah,
and the new material, isn't just coming out of thin air. I mean, it's coming out of natural resources
right.
that
And
that we
shipped and all
and
that. Yeah,
shipped, and and energy costs and the embodied energy of all of that. When the building's already there, um, is yes, there's a financial component that hasn't been completely solved yet. Agreed.
yeah,
But the the other existential aspects of this as a built condition, have to figure into our thinking. They just have to. I mean, that's the reality of this, and not just to say just from a built condition, but I think also from a community condition is that the density that a lot of these existing buildings um, already have created in terms of fabric is important in a forward thinking view of the way we need to actually you know look at design. It's if we're going to stitch cities and communities back together and create the density that's really really needed, for both housing affordability, all of the things, then these existing buildings are critical to that path. And yes, there might be some garbage buildings amidst that. I'm not going to argue that there aren't buildings that really just they're too far gone.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna die on that hill, but
Right.
it's but there are plenty of buildings that, just because it's quote unquote hard from a design point of view or a development point of view, I'm not buying it. And just because somebody doesn't understand, just because that building doesn't do exactly what they have envisioned in their brain,
Yeah.
they say, oh, well, that's going to cost me so much more money. It's going to cost you so much money because you want to do something that the building can't do.
Yeah.
And
Right.
but there's these other things that still meet your project objectives and that are completely appropriate for that building and still work within your budget, scale, schedule, all those things. Let's
Hmm.
talk about that.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I think that's where I tend to get a little bit aggressive about it, because I think we're sort of at that stage, and it's a different level of problem solving, and I think that there are a lot of pieces and parts that could be at play that quite frankly aren't. And sure,
Yeah.
if somebody wants a 5-story mixed use building, and there's a building in the way that's only 2 stories that can't take on an extra story or two because of the current condition, well, then you bought the wrong building.
Yeah.
you know do a land swap, do something else. I mean, there's plenty of other avenues, um, to think through this problem. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but at the same time, I think that clearing that land and building a whole new level of foundation so that you can do your 5-story building, that sticks and bricks, that's only going to be a 20-year max lifespan, when that building you just demoed has been there for 100 years.
Yeah.
That those numbers don't add up.
Yeah. 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 And our, I think we walked through our this ID5 studio work from last semester, right? At least a couple of projects, right?
Yeah.
I showed you some of the outcomes because it was very much a very infill project like this sketch, and the students definitely got to leverage a little more latitude in preservation and than maybe say I would in the real world, but that's fine. But I'm hoping that they're seeing, if they're watching this and or listening to us kind of recap through this sketch, just thinking, sort of, even though that's a whole semester away in the timeline of things, but where we are is sort of continually talking about the same subjects or the same conditions in a few, with some variation through the sketch, but pointing out the characteristics of a condition in an urban environment that could exist in any part of the country, that will become a question from a client at some point in any of our students' careers, right? If they stick with architecture long enough, they will cross this path
Well, I mean, and
again.
and and I think that that sort of revisiting it again is the reason why the other book is there. Is
Yeah, right.
that
Oh, yeah, that's my other point.
yeah? I mean, I know that people don't read as much anymore, and I know that people don't do the research. It's all very superficial to a certain degree, and that's a gross generalization, and I apologize, but it's true. And I think that in an art history or architectural theory or architecture history, kind of knowing that, decades prior, folks were postulating some of these kind of concepts and critiquing them. And even if they didn't have answers to all these questions, um, there was a fair amount that had influence on the work that ended up being built. And then it gets us to the point that we're at now, where we can still go back and look at those texts and say, wow, in 1961, you know, Jane Jacobs is telling us that, there's, an urban critique, that we need to really be figuring out what our next steps are. And here we are in 2025, and we're only now realizing the impacts of all these things. Um, and as a profession, I think really starting to take, you know, faster strides. It's not to say that nothing has happened in the past. I'm not being flippant in that. But I think that the acceleration of self critique as a profession and trying to move that needle, um, has accelerated. In the last 10 years, to a degree where I think the profession as a whole, small firm practitioner like yourself, medium sized firm, large firm, or architecture school, are all pivoting to realize we have to have this level of critique and analysis and thought to a larger question about how are we going to deal with all these existing buildings that are underutilized, and we have to deal with them. We also have to build new things. We have to do both things.
Hmm.
And before it was all new, like we're only just thinking new, like we're just sort of jettisoning the old. There's only specialists who deal with that stuff. But now we're realizing that all of us collectively have to deal with all of it, all the things, everywhere all at once. If we're going to really find a solution. And I think some of these books that are from the past have they were you know they were pointing out some of those things even if they couldn't even see that far into the future themselves. So I just sometimes I pull them out and kind of read and like, oh wow, this person's talking about this 60 years ago. Before I'm I mean I'm reading it as a student, and then now reading it as a seasoned practitioner or whatever, mature designer. And some of it's still really present in our conversations, even if some of it's not exactly accurate. But I think that there's something to be gained from some of that knowledge.
Yeah, and I look forward to grabbing my own copy of Carl's book too, and sort of connecting those dots too, back to say Jane Jacobs or other urbanist thinkers and architectural critics, over time. And so yeah, I definitely see a stronger correlation now, right? With the it was kind of fun by sort of composing these two sketches together, which is odd that they are the same sketch, but not odd at the end of the day. But with the two books, yeah. So thanks uh for leaving those Easter eggs for me to find. I guess maybe that's kind of our relevancy to the season that we're in. Near near my birthday is always Easter around the corner. So
It's Easter eggs, it's architecture week. There's things to find.
I prefer the Cadbury egg.
Oh yes,
You know,
yeah,
but yeah,
as do I.
we I mean, I know our sketches do vary from time to time or episode to episode, but some of these topics I definitely want to keep unpacking because as we sort of revamp or reboot for say next fall's ID5 studio, which is our sort of community engaged and oftentimes sort of adaptive reuse focused um, site selection. It would be interesting to see how we can inform you know the next
I
the
mean,
next iteration of it.
you might even know a guy who might even want to come and chat. So
Yep. I I I I picked up what you're putting down there. No, that would be great because that we'll see if we can kind of ship you up to Southfield
I read some
and talk
books.
about that.
I like to talk the architecture. It's all good.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Jamie. Until next time.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.